It's Sunday, December 23rd, 2012. I'd like to wish all of you happy holidays. Now, we have a very special program scheduled for our listening audience today. Our guest on today's program is none other than the 2012 vice presidential nominee for the Peace and Freedom Party, American anti-war activist. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you at this time to please welcome our guest, Cindy Sheehan, to the show. Hello, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, hi, Bruce, and thank you for inviting me.
It's great to have you on. Now, Cindy, I wanted to ask you about the recent 2012 election. It was a breakthrough for everyone who stands and represents third parties here in America, despite the country obviously being divided. There seems to be a hope for 2016. Again, keeping tradition with the old Dodgers saying, wait till next year. In this case, some of us are going to have to wait 4 more years. But I could only imagine also how difficult it must have been to talk about the issues so honestly, like you've been known to do, when you have the lamestream media always engaging in even more so than this election, complete media blackout of third parties. Now, despite all the obstacles, Cindy, you and your presidential running mate, actress and activist Roseanne Barr, were able to weather all that. Tell us about your recent vice presidential bid.
We were nominated by the Peace and Freedom Party. It's a socialist, feminist, environmental party in California. Peace and Freedom Party has been in existence since 1967, 68, in response to brutal crackdown on anti-Vietnam War protests. Some anti-war people got together and formed this new electoral alternative to the Democrats and Republicans. And, of course, the Vietnam War was heavily escalated and promoted by the Democratic Party in a lot of cases. So it was meant to be an alternative to that. But this year in 2012, we did have some really awesome candidates running on third-party or independent tickets. Like the Green Party had really good candidates. The New Justice Party had a good candidate. Even the Libertarian Party had an anti-war candidate, even though all of his issues wouldn't be something that I would resonate with. And, of course, the Peace and Freedom Party had Roseanne and I, and we presented, the Peace and Freedom Party presented a very viable solution to the status quo, to war, to Wall Street bailouts, to environmental destruction and everything. And so there was, I think, somebody for everybody to vote for outside of the Democrats and the Republicans, no matter what your personal political ideology is. But however, third party has only got about 1.6% of the vote and no electoral votes. And the person who did the best was Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party, got over 1 million votes.
That's
so
correct.
It was very disappointing. It's very disappointing that it seems like third party, the votes are going backwards, even though the parties are trying to, working harder to get those votes. It seems like we're going backwards. And I just get really, you said the lamestream media, I just get really disappointed in all of the establishment support for the one-party system that we have in the United States. Here Obama is getting ready to gut Social Security, and I'm not going to say he's caving in to the Republicans, because the Democratic Party is just part of the problem. It's not a solution to the problems, it's part of the problem. And what could have been clearer the last 4 years of Obama, that he is just as into war and bombing and killing innocent people and police state oppression here in the United States as his predecessor was, yet people still voted for him because they believe in this establishment meme that of the lesser of two evils, or they believe that this is like the most important election of our entire lives. Every election, they say, is the most important election of our entire lives. And if we don't vote for warmonger A, then warmonger B might get in, or vice versa. So although there were many wonderful choices, it was a very disappointing outlook or outcome that we had in the third party and independent politics had in 2016.
Well, Cindy, you guys did place sixth, I believe, right?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Well, at one point, Roseanne, she was the second highest paid woman in show business. Now, I have a quote from her here. It says, I think Obama is as corrupt as anybody's ever seen, and I think he's 2% better than Romney. Now, what do you say to those out there who think that there is no, obviously you and I know that, you know, the bipartisan big government establishment is always in tune, but what do you say to those out there who would say that there's no difference between these two candidates?
I think Roseanne said there's about 2%. Obama's 2% better than Romney.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on your perspective, what you're looking from what perspective you're looking at. But I really think that there's very little difference between the two establishment candidates, and I think Roseanne might have been being very generous to give them that much of a difference. Exactly.
Now, Cindy, I spoke with veteran activist of the Bohemian Grove Action Network, Mary Moore. She was featured actually on my show prior to syndication. I consider her a really good friend of mine. I spoke with her regarding the chaos that erupted at this year's Creation of Care protest and march. Now, you guys were out there. I saw the footage. You guys were trying to have a peaceful protest, but tell me about some of the uphill struggles you guys have with it. It seems that provocateurs were there, and they had loudspeakers, and I saw footage. I mean, you had the police. You know, they weren't really bothering you, but they were right next to you, and they're messing with you, who has a peaceful message, but then they have these guys over here cussing at them, yelling at them, and they do nothing to these guys. I just want to get your thoughts on the what happened at the Creation of Care march.
Well, it was very weird, and I think even Mary, in a communication with me, said that it was kind of misorganized a little bit from the beginning anyway, but they started the march, and I thought it was the march, and so we went on the march, and apparently it wasn't from the organizers, it was from these provocateurs, right? Mm-hmm. And so we marched up to the gate, and I always challenge the police whenever I have a situation where we confront them, but not in the way that the other people were challenging them. And then you make it more about that than about why we're there. And so after it wasn't very long, I just said, this is ridiculous. We have to go. And we left. So, I think that there was a lot of, I wanted to make it, as Mary does, a protest about what those people actually do to the world, not what they might be doing at Bohemian Grove, right? And so there's these people asking, there's this one guy that interviewed me, and he actually said, Cindy, so how do you feel about the Bohemian Grove? How do you feel about those people up there sacrificing babies? And I said, well, first of all, I don't think they actually sacrifice babies at the Bohemian Grove. But what you have to realize is that what they discuss leads to war and economic oppression, which is killing babies anyway, and everybody around the world. And so he said, but what if they were killing babies up there? What would you think? I said, oh, I would always be opposed to killing babies, but why are you focusing on this when, whenever these people get together, whether they're getting together at the Bohemian Grove, whether they're getting together at the G20 or G8 or World Bank meetings or World WTO meetings or whatever meetings these people are getting together for, they're planning no good.
Exactly.
Good for them, but no good for us, right? And I think that's what we have to focus on, and I think that's what Mary was trying to focus on. But then these crazy people who talk about sacrificing babies and talk about religious rituals that aren't Christian, I don't really give a crap about that, They could act however they want to act, and do whatever they want to do, but it's what they're planning, and what they always plan is what we should be opposed to. And so I think it just like at that point when they had this march and it turned into this weird, crazy thing was when I actually left.
Truly, I mean, it was circus journalism on the part of some of the alternative media guys out there. They have this guy, I believe his name is Doug Millar, an older gentleman. I mean, he's poking and prodding at the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department. Now, I'm not advocating any type of violence, especially against the police. It's a double-edged sword. They're there to help us, of course. With great power comes great responsibility. Some of them do turn to the dark side, aren't necessarily, they're not good guys, but some of them really are. And they're there to help our community, and I don't condone the actions of that man Millar just getting in the face of these people. Because what are they trained to do? They're trained to beat your head in if they see any type of resistance. And it looked like to me that he grabbed the baton and he was instigating it the whole time. It looked like to me they were trying to orchestrate this thing and try to get some type of raves and reviews, but obviously it backfired on them.
They definitely wanted me to do the same thing, to cross the line, but, I have bravely stood up to the police state many times and been arrested many times, but, I don't go to places hoping that I'm going to get my skull cracked at all, so I didn't cross the line.
Who does?
But, and to me, what we need to have a conversation with these people about is that there were dozens. There was CHP officers there, Sonoma County officers there. Why are the taxpayers putting in so much money to protect a bunch of billionaires? If billionaires want security, can't billionaires afford to pay for their own security? So that I don't agree with, using taxpayer money to protect billionaires on private property.
Exactly.
To me, that's ridiculous. And that was a conversation we needed to be having with, because if there are good cops there, maybe we can start to get the good cops thinking instead of being so willing to protect the 1%.
Exactly, because they're in the same boat as us. They are the citizenry as well as we are. People think they're not people. They are,
Many of them are class traitors, though, and I don't have a problem telling them that, And again, like I said, hopefully influencing the people who can be influenced that are on the other side of the line. They should be and I always tell them, you should be protecting us from them, not vice versa.
Exactly. And I did hear you state that in the footage that there is of the protest. Now, Cindy, you are one of Barack Obama's harshest critics, as any liberty-minded American in America today. I mean, it's no surprise. This man calls himself a constitutional lawyer. Constitutional lawyer, my foot. I mean, passing bills, reauthorizing the Patriot Act, warrantless wiretaps, passing the NDAA, endless unconstitutional wars, drone strikes. I mean, this man, man of the year, Nobel Prize. I can't take the who can any liberty-minded American can't deal with this type of hypocrisy, you know. What do you make of his policies? Of course, you know you're not you don't support them, of course. What do you make of him getting Person of the Year?
Well, of course, a lot of bad people have received Person of the Year. Hitler was Person of the Year, Time magazine one time, and so it's just like with the Nobel Peace Prize, it's just another way that the establishment, legitimizes its crimes. The Norwegian committee that gives out the Peace Prize, their parliament, it's the Norwegian parliament, and of course Norway was involved in supporting the NATO invasion and occupation of Afghanistan, so they're not going to penalize a person for doing that because they support it. So Obama, of course, sends more troops to Afghanistan, and his rhetoric is very hostile. I'm talking about, at the time before he got the Peace Prize. But, since then, of course, it's been ridiculous with Libya and supporting Israel and anything Israel wants to do against the Palestinians or the Gazans, increasing troops to Afghanistan, sneaking more troops back into Iraq, hypocritically crying over the babies that were killed in Sandy Hook while simultaneously ordering the murder of babies in Pakistan by his drones. It just is amazing to me. One thing that you didn't mention in his long list of crimes against our Constitution and against human rights, civil rights, is that he has a kill list. He has appointed himself judge, jury, and executioner of any American without giving that person due process. And, the persecution of whistleblowers, like Bradley Manning.
Yes.
He hasn't reviewed or released any political prisoners that have been in prison now for decades or, years. And he's a supporter of the death penalty. He's a supporter of nuclear energy. He's a supporter of privatization of course, healthcare, which was passed into law, and education, and prisons, and on and on and on and on and on. So, to even say that there's much of a degree of difference between Obama and the Republican candidate is, like I said before, generous.
Now he stated that Bradley in a video, I believe it's still on YouTube. He stated Barack Obama stated that he broke the law.
Right.
Bradley Manning broke the law. I mean that right there tells you his stance on the Constitution, which is there is none. He wants to see it obliterated. Now, Cindy, really, can you let our listening audience know? I mean, the passion that fuels your activism. I mean, you suffered a tragic loss which led you to your activism. Can you let our listening audience know how you got into activism? Also, your memoirs, Dear President Bush, or as your good friend Hugo Chavez would state, El Diablo. and also Peace Mom, both released. You published them in 2006. Your thoughts? Well,
the book Dear President Bush, I didn't name that book. The publisher named it. I never would have. I was long past calling him Dear or President. I was calling him George at that time, and I wasn't even saying Dear George. I was just like, hey, George. And, I mean, and the office, even people on the left, so-called left, was that, Cindy, if you don't respect him, you have to respect the office. And my response is, why? That office has been populated by a long line of scoundrels and murderers. You can't even find one pure, good person that was in that office. And so I don't know why you have to respect a oval-shaped office. It's just ridiculous. And so, of course, before my son was killed, I was against the wars, and I was against George Bush, but I wasn't an activist, and it's really hard. And so I understand why maybe some people can feel the way that we feel, but not be out at the marches or active. Because before Casey was killed, I didn't even know about these things. I wasn't, I guess, in the proper channels to find out about protests until after they happened, or I would have been out at them. So after Casey was killed, I was fired from my job because I took so much time off, of course. And so I just had a lot of time to start investigating things. And after I camped out in Crawford, Texas, at, just less than a mile away from George Bush's ranch there, I started traveling the world, and I started to get a wider perspective of things and how the U.S. hurts people in all parts of the world, not just here, or not just where we're actively bombing. But you mentioned Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. I mean, for centuries, the U.S. has been a bad actor in Latin America. Of course, has been one of our biggest places to spread empire and neoliberalism. And there might not have been many times where we sent our army, but, we've been profoundly involved in assassinating leaders of the countries that didn't conform to the United States, or who may have, not just assassinating them, but actively deposing them if they didn't conform to the ideals of the United Fruit Company or Standard Oil or
Operation Ajax.
Standard Oil. Huh?
Operation Ajax in Iran.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we've long been this imperial power that's harmed other people economically and environmentally, and of course with our wars and our weapons of mass destruction. So my activism started to expand to be more, a campaign for human rights, and not just Americans, but especially of other people around the world. And I say in Peace Mom that, I spent Casey's entire life and the life of my other 3 children trying to protect them, and look what happened. My son was still killed. And if I had spent more time trying to protect all of the children in the world and not just my own children, then Casey might still be alive. So that's what gets me up in the morning. That's what gets me motivated. That's my passion. I am like the luckiest grandma in the world. I have 4 wonderful grandchildren now, ages 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're all over here right now playing out. I'm locked in my room. I'm doing this interview, and I can hear them playing out. And I have such a wonderful motivation that I can see and hug and kiss on a daily basis. But every single child and person on this planet is just as precious as these 4 babies. And I mourn for the mothers who have to go through what I've had to go through, whether they're American or,
Exactly.
a different nationality.
Exactly.
And I just hope that my activism has prevented, some of that from happening. And of course, millions have had to suffer since Casey was killed. And so, I haven't been able to prevent it entirely, but I hope that it's had an influence where at least some people have been saved. I do have one story. I was in Venice, Italy, shortly after Camp Casey, and it was in this place, I spoke in this place that was very hard to get to, but in the audience were 2 Americans, and they were from Texas. And so you never know if they're from Texas, whether they love you or hate you. It was a mother
Exactly.
and her daughter. And so the daughter came up to me afterwards, and she told me that she was, the summer of 2005, her class, which was from a small town, very small class, but there was, about 100 seniors in her graduating class, she said that they were going into their senior year that summer, and every single boy in her class was going to join the Texas National Guard after they graduated. But after my protest, not one of them did. And so that was like the most wonderful news I could have gotten. And if I didn't influence one other person for the rest of my life, that would have been satisfying to me.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, Cindy, as a libertarian myself, you probably know my stance on gun control, and that is simply that, an unarmed citizenry is subject to the government's tyranny. Now, lately, in regards of this horrendous tragedy in Connecticut, everybody and their mother is calling for stricter gun laws. Can you let our listening audience know your stance on this tragic incident, and also what the country can do to deter these horrible events from happening? I mean, you can't really deter these things, but what can one do to be better prepared for this type of?
Well, it's amazing that very few of these incidences happen anywhere else but the United States. And so we have to question our own culture of violence that we have in the United States. But I think that we have to question it from the top down, not from the bottom up. And then we also have to question the access to holistic mental health that is non-existent in the United States. I've heard different reports about Adam Lanza. Was he on psychotropic drugs? Was he not on psychotropic drugs? So, I don't have a definitive word on this, but many of these people are on psychotropic drugs that do these kinds of horrible things. And the Peace and Freedom Party, of course, was also founded by libertarians. Murray Rothbard was one of the founding members of the Peace and Freedom Party, which is a socialist party. And a plank in our platform is the citizenry has the right to keep and bear arms to defend itself from the government. And the thing that I really wish would happen was that there would be more of that. I've never really seen a gun owner and a gun lover who has been courageous enough to defend people from the government. There's been so many times where I've been abused by the police state, and there's been nobody there to defend me from that. But anyway, it's really a discussion that we need to have without emotions. It's such an emotional issue to so many people, and I don't really have a solution for the problem, but my solution is not to disarm the citizenry. It's
Absolutely.
to disarm the police state, and it's to bring peace from the top down. For Barack Obama, I don't know if I said it on this interview or the interview that I just had, because I had one before yours. For Barack Obama to cry crocodile tears about the children in Connecticut while he's murdering children all over the world I think that's the conversation that we need to first have. We need to first have the conversation of state-sponsored and state-sanctioned violence. If it's not okay for Adam Lanza to have a kill list, it's not okay for Barack Obama to have a kill list. If it's not okay for you to keep and bear arms, then it's not okay for your local police department to keep and bear arms either. So this is like the discussion I think that we have to have, is the violence from the top down. And why isn't it being questioned? Why isn't there anybody in the so-called media making these points? We're making these points, and I say thank goodness for alternative media, because at this moment, with alternative media and with social media, I really think that we are winning the information war. But again, the state could shut down our venue at any time. Our venues are very precarious.
Exactly.
Where CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, their existence isn't precarious. So I think that it's a debate and a discussion that we need to reasonably have. How can we stop people who are mentally ill from killing innocent people? And that goes from the top down. How can we stop Barack Obama? How can we stop the mentally ill, psychopathic government from killing innocent people? And I think that's where our conversation needs to start.
Absolutely. Now, Cindy, you mentioned that you've had various run-ins with the police state. Now, I saw that you protest outside of Washington D.C. Can you tell? I know they dropped the charges, but can you tell us about some of the run-ins you've had with the police state?
Oh gosh, I don't know what time you're talking about that they dropped the charges, because I've been arrested maybe around 20 times now, and sometimes I've had to go to trial. Sometimes the charges have been dropped. Just recently, this year in May, I had a trial for being arrested at Vandenberg Air Force Base protesting the test launch of a Minuteman delivery system for nuclear weapons. And we got the charges dropped. There were 15 or 16 of us, I think. We got those charges dropped because the Air Force refused to provide information that one of our attorneys requested. So if the Air Force refused to provide the information, then they really couldn't go ahead with the prosecution, because we wouldn't have, the information we needed to mount credible defense. So those charges were dropped. But as far as I know, we're still banned from the Air Force Base for 3 years. I don't think that ban and bar order has been lifted. But I've been arrested in front of the White House many times. I've been arrested in Congress, in the halls of Congress, and in the actual building many times. And 2 times I've been arrested in front of the White House since Obama's been president. I don't go to Washington, D.C. as often as I used to. It gives me creepy feelings being there. It's where I think the cancer of our society is most profound there. And I think we should be more active in our own communities, in our own states, to where we can make real change. And since the Democrats have been in power, there's been very little national things going on in Washington, D.C. either, which is super unfortunate.
Okay. Well, Cindy, the Occupy movement, what do you believe are some pros and cons with Occupy? Personally, I think they'd be better off going into really focusing on the Federal Reserve and their stranglehold over U.S. monetary policy. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts about the Occupy movement is I wish they would be more focused on war and peace and the empire. I think that they had rightly identified a lot of the problems, but they didn't identify the trillions of dollars spent on the war machine every year as one of the problems. And so I went to a lot of different Occupy movements, and they would have different focuses, but they would say things like our problem today is money and politics, our problem today is Wall Street, our problem today is A, our problem today is B. But I would say, no, I think our problem is the trillions of dollars we spend on killing machines and actually killing people and these active wars. And if we can solve that issue, then many of the issues would resolve themselves. And so, and another problem, of course, was that in 2012, when the presidential election started coming up, many of the Occupy movements or the people associated with them supported Barack Obama, which, of course, he and other Democratic mayors around the country were heavily involved in suppressing the Occupy movement. So I don't understand why they would support Democrats. So those are the problems I have with Occupy. But the strengths I think that Occupy has is that in many communities, the people who made the core of whatever Occupy movement in whatever community, whichever community, they started to identify local issues that needed help, like foreclosures and food production and things like that, and took the nucleus of the Occupy activists and started working on local issues, which like I said earlier, I think that the true change is really going to happen.
Absolutely, and they also do a great job at pointing that. Some of them point out that capitalism in its entirety is not the problem. It's actually crony capitalism, and I think they do well in bringing to light those issues. Now, Cindy, I recently I translated a letter for you for your dear friend, President of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, which I was very pleased to do for you. Can you share the details of that letter with our listening audience?
Well, President Chavez has recently, as most people know, been battling cancer, and Venezuela and Cuba are both countries that I've been to many times, and I really love the countries and I love the people, and I love the medical system in Cuba. It's so farther advanced than ours is, in the fact that more people have access to it. But since the U.S. embargo, they don't have a lot of the medicines and equipment that they need. But I can understand why Chavez goes to Cuba, because his life, of course, is more compromised in his own country because of the reach of the U.S. government and the tentacles and the millions of dollars they pour into Venezuela to destabilize that country, to try and overthrow President Chavez. But I don't even want to say what treatment he's taking for his cancer, because nobody really even knows what kind of cancer he does have or what he's doing besides the traditional chemo, radiation, and surgery. So my open letter to him was just saying that there are many alternatives that would restore health, not pour more poison into his body like chemo and radiation does. And I don't even know, he might be doing those things, but we don't know. So people contact me all the time and say, Cindy, you need to tell Chavez that he can do this, he can do that, he shouldn't be doing this, he shouldn't be doing that. And it's not like I can just text him, Yeah. I do admire him, and we have on many occasions met and been together, and I know he admires me also and loves me as much as I love him, but it's not like we are best friends that I could just contact at any time. So, and I have tried to get some things to him through the channels I would use if I actually wanted to go down there and meet with him. I do have those channels. And I was invited to go down there for the presidential election on August 7th, but my daughter got married on August 6th, so I couldn't make it. So I would have been able to meet with him then and tell him about these alternatives. And I don't want to presume anything that he might be also doing these things. So the open letter was just to let him know and let the people know who have been contacting me that I have been trying to reach him with these alternatives. And you never know what you're going to do until you're faced with issues. Before Casey was killed in 2004, I never thought I could survive the death of, physically survive the death of one of my children. I thought that it would actually kill me to have one of my children killed. Wow. But I found a strength inside me that I didn't know existed. But I would hope that if I came down with cancer, and I think that our environment and our food is getting to a point to where it won't be like if you get cancer, but what kind of cancer you're going to get in the very near future. If I ever came down with cancer, I would hope that I wouldn't pour more poisons into my body. But you don't know what you're going to do until you're faced with it personally. And of course, I wanted him to know that there are many people here that love him and support him.
Exactly. Now, Cindy, I wanted to share this story with you. I saw it yesterday online, and this seriously, it reminds me of the novel Ray Bradbury's novel Fahrenheit 451. Now, apparently, the U.S. military, DARPA, they patented a robotic dog. Now, it's supposedly for military use. Now, apparently, it can carry up to 400 pounds. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Fahrenheit 451, but in the novel, they had a dog, a mechanical dog that would patrol the streets. What do you make of this type of story?
Robotic warfare and surveillance, something that I've been concentrating on a little bit since Obama's been president, because of course he's greatly expanded the Bush program, and it's something I think that we can point to, because a lot of people are like, well, he inherited a mess, but you don't inherit a mess and then make it worse. That's my, personal opinion. But I've seen videos of a robotic horse, and it doesn't have a head, but it can carry tremendous payloads, and it's used to go up the hills, the steep mountains and stuff in Afghanistan, and carry equipment for the military. But are you saying this dog is more like a surveillance?
Yes, from the news story, it seems to operate under voice command. It could carry out commands, and it was patented by DARPA. So I mean, it's. Mm-hmm. I think it's.
Well, also, I was in Washington, D.C. in September of 2007, and myself and my team saw the little bug surveillance, the little flying surveillance drones that they have now, and they looked about the size of a big bumblebee. And and then also about 90 people after that march came down with the rabbit flu.
Wow.
So that was really, really strange. So I think, yes, the drones are the drones that are dropping Hellfire missiles in Pakistan and Afghanistan and Syria and Somalia and Yemen and places like that.
Palestine.
Those were first surveillance drones. Mm-hmm. And so we now have surveillance drones flying in the United States. I believe one crashed in South Carolina recently, and of course they add more danger to commercial aviation, because the drones in Afghanistan and Pakistan have knocked a couple of military planes out of the sky by running into them. So surveillance drones can very easily be armed.
Absolutely. Now there also are reports of these drones actually being hacked and even being taken down. One recent, I believe it was in Iran. You could see the war machine just revving up. They were saying they wanted to invade Iran. Now they're dropping bombs on Palestine. It's truly something that's sad. I mean, when will we learn as humanity that war is disgusting?
Can I say one thing too about that? The people who pilot the drones, they call the innocent people they kill bug splat. And, here the babies in Sandy Hook, Connecticut are precious angels, but the ones in the countries where the drone pilots are bombing are bug splat, and to me that just makes me want to barf.
It's absolute hypocrisy, yes, by of course the mainstream media, which we know is they're losing their credibility every single day that goes by.
Yes, I hope so, and I hope we are winning the information war against them.
I believe so, Cindy. Now, Cindy, we survived the apocalypse.
Yay!
We're still here. Now, of course, those of us that were familiar with what was going on, we knew that we were still going to be here. I was fortunate enough to attend a lecture by Giorgio Sokol, a man, the co-producer of Ancient Aliens. You familiar with that show? Yeah, and I saw a lecture. He basically stated that it was another precision, another cycle that was going to take place. Not necessarily anything violent was going to happen or catastrophic, but it was just the beginning of a new cycle. And also,
right.
It's interesting when I turned on the TV and they're revving up this Mayan prophecy apocalypse. That they go ahead and they show the Aztec calendar instead of the Mayan calendar. It's just
right.
utter disinformation. Everywhere, CBN everywhere. You were partying. I mean, so was Giorgio. I was busy, getting ready for the broadcast and the show. I was attending to my young daughter as well. So I didn't have a chance to party, but a lot of people were partying it up. Let our listening audience know what you guys were up to on the Judgment Day, supposedly.
Well, my youngest daughter, her birthday is the 22nd, so it was yesterday. So months ago, we started joking about how we better have her party on the 21st, and in case we're not around on the 22nd. And it was just a way to have like a holiday open house for our friends and our family and to celebrate my daughter's birthday. And I actually ran into a man in Tijuana. I was down there for a conference a few months ago, and he's an expert on Mayan culture. And I have a charm that's the Mayan symbol for infinity. And so he gave me this long discourse on how lucky my daughter is to be born on the 22nd because she's like the goddess of the New Age. Anybody born on the 22nd are like the rulers of the New Age or whatever. So I'm hoping that it is a new age of peace and prosperity for everybody on this planet. But until we get there, we're going to have to, in a very profound way, in our class, realize that there's 7 billion plus people on this planet, and everybody on this planet has the same existential right, and they have the same human rights. We all are equal. And until we in the biggest empire in history that live here realize that, then, I'm afraid that we're not going to usher in a positive age, but it's going to be a negative age. So I always feel so optimistic at the start of a new year that things are going to be better and better. So I'm going to tell you and your listeners that I'm very hopeful for 2013 that there's going to be a renewal of activism and love for all humanity. And I really believe today that that's actually going to happen. Talk to me next year and we'll see if it does happen. But I think that there is a reawakening, and I can feel it. And I hope that what I say right now is right and the truth.
It is. There truly is an awakening, and it's thanks to people like you, Cindy, that it's truly possible. Again, I want to thank you for being a guest on our show today. Thank you so much, Cindy. I'm glad your voice is better. I'm glad I could translate that letter for you. Anytime you need anything of that nature, just don't hesitate to ask me. And we look forward here on the Bruce Montalvo Show to many, many more broadcasts with you in the near future. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Bruce, and happy holidays to you and your family and your listeners.
Same to you. Thank you, Cindy, so much.
Okay, my website too, cindysheehansoapbox.com.
Absolutely.
I wanted to get that in before it was over.
I should have.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was anti-war activist Cindy Sheehan.